Okay, that's my time to start speaking. First thing I'd like to thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Yes? Good? No? Speaking, one, two, three. Testing. You can hear me. Okay, cool. I'll pass back the mic to you now.
Okay. First thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to apologizing in general. For me, you have two ways for apologizing. First thing, if you're going to offer a carefully crafted apology, that is the kind of apology that can open a door to healing. On the other side, you can have too many different intents. Through these intents, you can open a door for what I call continued abuse. To be specific, for me, apology got it's a tool, it's an art. So when we're talking about apology, you can use your phrasing, you can use your nonverbal signals. All these things are tools that you can use to offer an apology. For me, we have three main kinds for apologizing. The first is the good kind of an apology. This good kind of apology is the one that focuses on the receptionist. I mean, I'm saying it's like I'm sorry, I'm late because I was so busy. When you say the first kind is the good kind of an apology, this is the kind that focuses on the receptionist. I mean, I'm gonna tell you that I'm sorry because I know it's very annoying that you be being hold all this time. That's why I'm start to address your concern. That's a good kind of an apology. Second kind of an apology is gonna be a bad one. This bad one is that I'm gonna say I'm sorry, but I'm so busy these days. I have a lot to do and these things. So this is kind of a bad apology. The third type, what I call the manipulative apology, or that kind of apology that can be misusing. When I start to say I'm gonna blame you for everything happens, like I'm gonna say I'm sorry, but that I'm late, but you're the one that picked this time at the rush hour. You're the one that said this time for a meeting. It's a rush hour, so I'm gonna blame you by the end. This is the kind of abusive apology, sort of the apology that focuses on control. Okay, if you can say so. That's a kind of an apology where you can use your tone of voice, when you can use your body language, and these tools can accept a manipulative demand for forgiveness. So, from my point of view, just to cut it short, forgiveness is a private matter. It's an internal thing that it happens on its own. So you don't need to pay for an apology. And that's it. I'm gonna pass the mic.
So you've identified a couple of different types of apology there. I think that you can clarify this in your next speech, but it sounds like what you're only really standing for is that a certain type of apology can be considered a manipulation and other types can be considered genuine apologies. I would regard that. I think that the kind of spirit of this debate is that you need to sort of take a slightly harder line to say that apologies in general exist as a form of manipulation, because if I can show that I feel that there are types of ways that you can apologize that are not forms of manipulation, then obviously every kind of social human interaction has the potential to be used as a form of manipulation. I think that if we just say, like, this has the potential to be used as a form of manipulation, therefore it is a form of manipulation, we start getting down a very slippery slope. So I just want to quickly talk about what I think, like, some definitions for manipulation and what I think an apology is. So I think if we wanted to consider something manipulation, we would have to consider getting someone to do something that they otherwise would not have done, or act in a way or believe something they otherwise would not have believed, using deception, right? And I think this just differentiates it just from like a power relation, where it's like, I can get you to do what I want you to do if I have a gun to your head, but if I lie to you, for example, I've manipulated you into doing what I want you to do, right? So it's about changing people's behavior, I think, is a fair mark, right? What I would define an apology as, and I think you kind of break it down well there, but I think in general, what an apology is some kind of expression of the genuine human feeling of remorse, right? Like, there are times in our lives where we have made mistakes or we have done things that we are not happy with, and we wish to communicate that to other people. And by doing so, that is when we apologize, right? And this can be for a whole different sway of things. Now, the point that I want to point out is that if we center this debate around your last kind of apology, that you want to sort of focus on as the form of manipulation, I would say two responses to that. First thing being that instances where you are not genuinely sorry, then but you're still apologizing to try to manipulate the person, then that would really constitute a form of lying, because you do not have that genuine feeling that you are trying to convince the other person that you have. If you do have that genuine feeling, but as you say, you kind of use your language and your body language to try to shift the guilt onto another person, it's not really the apology there that's doing the manipulation. You're doing a kind of emotional manipulation where you're trying to tweak with that person's sense of guilt, or their sense of, that they have done something wrong, in order to try to manipulate them. So I don't think that apologies in that particular sense, if they are genuine expressions of human remorse, that those can be considered forms of manipulation. But I'll pass the mic back to you now.
Okay, yeah, I've got your point. I think I understand what you're talking about. I mean, what you've got from my first speech, that I just classified apologies into one or two or three categories, and I'm just be talking about a certain category or a certain sector of apologies, the one that is gonna be manipulative. That's not my point, actually. My point is the whole thing of apologies is getting it's becoming like an art. What I'm saying is becoming like an art. I mean, apology is getting to be it's like something like a playful matter, something that you can play with, because as you agreed, we have many tools to offer a good apology, just like your body language, your communication skills, your tone of voice. All these are tools that you can use to develop a good sensitive or a good sense-making apology. My point is, when I'm saying that I'm against, or I consider apology as a form of manipulation, because if you can say the word "I'm sorry" just with the except of "I love you," the word "I'm sorry" is going to be the most powerful phrase for human connection in our language, and that's exactly why this word "I'm sorry" is being misused. If we're gonna say that many people are using the word "I'm sorry" as an opening session, it's just like, "How are you doing today?" "Well, man, I'm sorry. Can you pass me this cup?" "I'm sorry, can you open the door for me?" This is a way of an expression that you're just misusing the word "I'm sorry." You're using the word "I'm sorry" to open other sentences. That's something. Something else is that many different people will use apologize to frequently, there are those people who are, you can say, they are suffering low self-esteem. So those are kind of people who are just apologizing whenever it's the chance to offer an apology. So these kind of people who are suffering self-esteem just to seeking approval from others, or to avoid conflict. So they're just being sorry for anything that happened. Whenever they are near an occasion to be sorry, they are sorry. And the third part, or the third, abusive approach about apologizing that I can say is that's the most destroying part, when you start to use the apology to manipulate somebody. That's my point. And this is the third type. I mean, just to illustrate again, using "I'm sorry" as a frequent word that you can open any, you're opening any situation with the word "I'm sorry," just like, "How are you doing today?" "Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you open the door for me?" When you start, just to recap myself, when you use this to apologize for anything that happened or anything that didn't happen, that's a kind of a manipulation. The third is when you start to manipulate people when it comes to just saying the word "I'm sorry." In the next speech, I'll be talking more about this, but for now, I'll just pass the mic for you.
So I think that, yeah, you break down some interesting ideas of the way that sorry is used in normal conversation and apologies in general. My claim is going to be that those do not constitute forms of manipulation, because they do not ultimately change the person's behavior in a way that gives the power to the person who is giving the apology and takes it away from that person. So let's just break it down a little bit. The first thing that you want to note is that communication is something that can be very skillful. You can use the word art to describe how people are able to sell those things. The thing that I would note there is that how well you are communicating with another person does not necessarily make that a form of manipulation, because ultimately the power still lies in the person that you are apologizing to. So it's true, you can sell your apology better than other people can sell your apologies, and you can use a wider range of communication tactics to really try to convey the message that you are genuinely remorseful to that other person. But ultimately, the decision on how to act based on that apology still lies with that other person, where they can choose to accept that apology and then move on, or they can choose to reject that policy and say no, that apology, and say, no, I don't forgive you for what you've done, even though if I believe that you are being genuinely remorseful, I'm still not going to forgive you. That it's only really a kind of manipulation apology if it's the case where you don't feel that genuine remorse, but you try to convince someone that you do feel that genuine remorse, and then they make a decision based on the fact that they think that you are genuinely remorseful. I will admit that that is a form of manipulation, but as I early stipulated, that can't really be considered an apology because it's not a genuine feeling of remorse, that you are lying to that other person, and lying is a form of manipulation. So I think that that is a reasonable distinction to draw. The second thing that you want to identify is that people often use apologies as a kind of social, like in everyday social situations. Like, I'm sorry, could you just pass me that cup? Or I'm sorry, just let me get into that door there, right? I'm once again also going to say that I don't think that this is a form of manipulation. I think a better analogy is to say it's a form of social lubricant. And the way that I can say it's not a form of manipulation is that I don't think the behavior would change if you put the apology there or not. Like if I just say to my coworker, hey, buddy, could you pass me that cup? Or hey, mate, could you pass me that cup? Or would you mind passing me that cup? All of those things would still get him to pass that cup to me. But also saying, hey, bud, I'm sorry, I know you're in the middle of something, but could you just quickly pass me that cup? That, like, nothing changes about his behavior, but I could have a genuine feeling of remorse to say, you know, I know that you're doing something right now and this is a minor inconvenience to you, but if you could just help me out that quickly, I would really appreciate it. I think that it's perfectly fine for people to acknowledge small inconveniences that they're causing to other people within their lives and apologize for them, you know, while having part of the social lubricant, because I think that that shows a level of care and empathy to other people's surroundings that is good in ultimately mediating social conversations. And I'll pass the mic back over to you now.
Okay, so far, thank you for this. So far, I believe that in your last speech, we've agreed somehow that you do think that apologizing can somehow get some sort of manipulation. So we got a point to agree on. Just replying to your last speech, we're saying the word I'm sorry, passing me this cup, or I'm sorry. That was just an example for it. The whole thing is when you say I'm sorry, pass me this cup. Actually, you're not sorry. You just have another intent. You need me to give you this cup, so you just tell me, can you just pass me this cup? My point is, you stop using the word I'm sorry for anything. You stop using the word I'm sorry for being sorry or being not sorry, because this is a misuse. That's how you're going to be misusing the word I'm sorry itself. What I'm trying to say is, for the very essence of anything, why is the question why? So why do we apologize? Why do you apologize? And in general, we're asking for forgiveness. If you can say asking for forgiveness, that's the reason that we apologize. So let's consider three apologies approaches that we're going to use right now. It's going to be the first one is going to be saying, I'm sorry if I, and this is a kind of apology that is, it's like, I'm sorry if I'm sorry, but if I was doing something yesterday, that's kind of an apology that stands for something hypothetical. I mean, it's an hypothetical manner. I mean, you're just setting the hypothesis that for something that you might have done, and you actually have done this thing, but you're just saying, I'm sorry, but what if I have done 1, 2, 3, 4? You're just setting the hypothesis for 1, 2, 3. Actually, you've done 1, 2, 3, but you're not going to be so clear enough to say that you've done. So that's kind of a fake apology, if you got my point. Second is when I'm saying I'm sorry that you, and then I'm starting to going to blame you for doing these things and for doing 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, in this sense, I'm saying that this kind of a dirty apologizing, because I'm blaming you for doing things that you are the one who's offended in the first place. And then when I'm trying to say I'm sorry, I'm saying that I'm sorry that you, and I start to blame you. And the third type is the classic approach for saying I'm sorry. That's the approach that every 3 years old kid can do, which is that I'm sorry, but, and then you start saying the real thing that you've done, and then you start to confess what you've done. This is the three strategies that I'm trying to say. My point is, and I don't think I'm going to be able to say it in this speech. The next thing is that apologizing is kind of an art that you can master. And in the next speech, I will be talking about this, and I'll pass the mic for you right now.
So just to make it clear, because the the thing that I am standing behind when I say that apologies can be a form of manipulation in some circumstances is that I'm saying the manipulation takes the form of an apology, as in it looks to an outside observer like it's an apology. But as I already stated in my first speech, I think that a fair definition of an apology is a genuine expression of human remorse, right? Like you have this feeling inside that you are sorry for what you have done, you regret what you have done, and then an apology is trying to communicate that to another person. If you do not have that feeling, but you still apologize to that person because you are trying to get them to do something, then that is a lie because you do not have that genuine feeling, but you are trying to communicate to someone else that you do have that genuine feeling of remorse. So in that case, I think it's fair enough to say that that is not a genuine apology. That is a lie that you are trying to convince other people. And lying often is a form of manipulation. And in this particular case, the fact that the lie takes the form of an apology should not justify that apologies in general are the types of things that manipulate you. The claim that I'm making is that a genuine apology, which is a genuine expression of human remorse, has no manipulation power because the ultimate decision of how to react to that apology still lies within the person who is receiving the apology, who is taking that. Is that you are putting your feelings out on the table, you are saying I am sorry for this thing, but then the person who is accepting that apology or can either choose to either accept it or deny it. And given the power still relies with them, and that the definition for manipulation that I provided is that manipulation is something where you get someone to do something that they don't want to do or they otherwise wouldn't have done via deception, is that no longer is able to fit the criteria to say apologies are a form of manipulation. I accept all of your points to say that, once again, this can be something that can be done skillfully. This is something that can be done in a variety of different manners. What I would say once again is that the degree to which you are able to communicate well does not necessarily constitute whether or not you are manipulating someone. In order to determine whether we are manipulating someone, we have to look at whether or not the power to change actions lies in the hands of the person whose actions they are, or whether or not they are being manipulated by someone else. I don't believe that apologies have the power to do that when they are genuine, because the power still lies with that person, right? And the last thing I just want to quickly touch on and say is that, when people just do these social lubricant interactions, when they say, oh, I'm sorry, can you pass me that cup? They don't really mean it. I think that might be true in some cases, but I think if you are just saying that you don't mean it, you're kind of an asshole. You should acknowledge that you're causing small inconveniences in other people's lives. And I think that it's appropriate to have small apologies to be able to reflect those. Yeah, pass it back to you.
Okay, I thank you for all the points that you just highlighted. What I really think that the claim that I have right now is that you're saying that if I got you right, that there must be a genuine apology, and this genuine apology will always stand out and will always be reached to the other side. I mean, the offended person will always get this genuine apology, and they will just judge you upon the situation. I don't agree with that 100%, because I think that a genuine apology is something that you can fabricate. I'm gonna give that chance. I'm gonna let you know in 6 steps how to provide a genuine apology. As we agreed in the last speech, you have 3 ways to offer a bad or a dirty apology. If you're gonna say I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you, and then I'm sorry but, all these are classic ways. Let's just get a look on the 6 steps to have a good apology, a genuine apology, whether you are genuine or not, whether you're honest about what you're saying or not, but you're gonna take it this way and it will sound genuine. Let's see. First thing you're gonna say is, I'm sorry that and you're gonna say the act that I've done is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm sorry that I have done 1, 2, 3. This is the first thing I'm showing. I'm using the word I to show responsibility. The second thing is I'm going to do is I'll be saying thing is, and I will start to explain the logic. At this time, back days when I did this mistake, I will explain the logic that caused me to do this bad thing. And the third step that I'm going to use is I will start to explain that right now, at this point, I don't agree with the logic that made me or forced me to do this action back days. That's the third step. And the fourth step is I'm going to poke this apology with, I'm sorry that I hurt you with this statement. And the fifth step is going to be, will you forgive me? And the sixth step is I'm just going to stay quiet. So this is a perfect strategy to offer a genuine apology. Okay, I mean, that's something that you can master right now. If I'm gonna say again, I will just repeat them. I'm sorry if I've done 1, 2, 3. I know that doing 1, 2, 3 was not accepted at this time, but right now I don't agree whatsoever with what I've done or with the logic that forced me to do this at this time. And right now, I know that I hurt you, and will you forgive me? And I'm sorry about this. That sounds like a genuine apology. Although it's not a genuine apology, I don't mean it whatsoever, but it sounded genuine because there is a strategy, there is a way that you can do. That's it. That's what I call a genuine apology, and it's not genuine whatsoever, and it's just a sort of manipulation. I'll pass the mic.
So once again, it's never my claim that manipulation of other people can't take the form of an apology. The claim that I'm making is that apologies in and of themselves are not forms of manipulation. And in fact, as I've stated multiple times, is that given that like all of communication is about trying to transfer some internal feeling or some internal thought process that you as an individual are having to another person. And the way that we know when something is a lie is when your internal process or your internal beliefs or your internal feelings do not match the things that you are saying. My claim is that apologies are an expression of remorse. If you do not have that genuine remorse and you are apologizing, then you are lying. Therefore, it is no longer an apology. It is a lie that looks like an apology. And I guarantee, and I accept all the things that you're saying in that they are easy to do and they are something that you can master. It is possible to get really, really good at lying to other people and manipulating other people. The thing that I feel you have to stand for in this debate is to say that when someone is making a genuine apology, that is a form of manipulation to another person, which I have rebutted numerous times by saying that when you're making a genuine apology to another person, that once they accept that that apology is genuine, the ultimate power of the decision still lies with them. They can choose to accept the apology, they can choose to reject the apology, and whatever they choose to do, they choose the actions going forward. Therefore, it cannot be considered a form of manipulation going forward. Couple of other things I want to address when you're talking about like different forms of like dirty apologies. The like I'm sorry but and the I'm sorry and. Firstly, in circumstances where you say I'm sorry but and then you lead into this whole other tirade about something else, right? It's quite clear that what's being said there is more of just like a language formality or a language trick rather than it is any kind of genuine apology. Like if I'm arguing with someone who I quite despise and I'm like I'm sorry but you're an idiot, right? That person knows that I'm actually not really sorry for anything that I'm about to say. And so if it's transparent, the lie that I'm transferring through, then there's no an actual chance for deception, because after I've just called him an idiot, he's not going to be like, yeah, well, he did say he was sorry for it, so maybe it's like not that hard. It's you have to actually be deceived in some way in order for it to be considered a form of manipulation. The other thing I want to point out is that your cases of I'm sorry and that it's not the apology that is doing the manipulation. It is the emotional manipulation that happens afterwards that is changing that person's behavior. Like if I say I'm sorry, but you really should have done all of these things, then you're manipulating someone on the basis of guilt, not on the basis of the apology that you just made. Is that when apologies are genuine and not lies, they cannot be considered forms of manipulation because they are things that ultimately still keep the power of the decision making in the person who is being apologized to.
Okay. Firstly, thank you so much for all the points that you just highlighted. What I'm trying to say is, you've been talking about the genuine apology that will always reach. I got your point. You've been talking about this many times, and I got your point. But what I'm trying to say is, at some point when you're going to offer an apology, I mean, the first thing that if you're really sincere about offering an apology to somebody, is the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is this body, the offended person. And the first thing you're going to think about doing is not going to be a word. It's not going to be just you saying, I'm sorry. It's going to be an action. Okay. So the best thing to offer an apology is going to be an action. That's 100% more strong and more better than just saying some words. That's my point here. If you're really sincere about your apology, you'll be doing an action. You'll offer an action to help out, to help the situation pass, or do anything about it. But it's going to be an action, not just some words, because as I'm saying more and over again, words are it's not just an art of a language. Just like you said an apology is just sort of a language matter, just statement that you can say, and that you just be offering somebody an apology and they will just forgive you. As we agreed, and I agree with you at this point, that forgiveness is internal. Forgiveness is something that's just happening for what it is. I mean, you're never going to be pushing someone to forgive you for doing anything, because if they don't believe it deep inside themselves that they are to forgive you, they will never forgive you, no matter what you've said. But what I'm saying is there is a kind of technique, there is kind of a strategy that you can master, will help you be using apologies everywhere in your workplace, in your college, in your street, everywhere. You can use these good formats of apologies to seek, forgiveness, to seek manipulation for other people. Whether you do mean this apology or you don't mean this apology, you're good at it. You know how to do it. You'll be mastering this, and you will know how to manipulate. That's my point. That's what I don't agree. That's why I think that apologies is considered some sort of manipulation. Otherwise, I mean, if you're really sincere about somebody and you want to help somebody, you want to apologize about doing something, you'd be going for an action. This is the first thing that you're going to do. I'll pass the mic, man.
I'll just deal with a couple of the things that you've said there, and then I'll make some closing statements, and I'll pass it back to you to finish that off, right? So the first thing you said is that action, if you're really sorry about something, that you could perform an action. I would say that actions are perfectly legitimate forms of communication, and that apologies often can take the form of actions. If you did something to upset your partner, for example, like you forgot your anniversary, and the next day they showed up to work and there's some flowers that you've delivered from them, they're getting the message that you're trying to say, I'm sorry for forgetting this thing. Here, let me make some action to try to make it up to you. Communication can happen in non-verbal ways and with actions. I would say that once again, that kind of shies away from the central question, is the action of actually doing that apologizing something that is a form of manipulation? And once again, I would say if it is genuine, then it is not. You come back to this idea of strategy, which I have a couple of points to rebut to. First thing to say is that once again, yes, you can get good at manipulation. That does not mean that the form of manipulation, or that does not mean that the language that you are using specifically is the type of thing that is itself inherently a manipulation, right? Because by extension of that claim, if we were to say that, like, you can manipulate with someone by speaking to them, because that is a way that you can use the manipulation, then by the extension of that, we would have to say every type of communication is a form of manipulation, because that is the form that some kinds of manipulation take. But obviously that is not true, and that is the same claim that I'm making about apologies. Yes, when people lie about how they are feeling and lie about the remorse that they are feeling, and then try to communicate that to other people in order to try to guilt them to get them to do what they want, they are using the form of an apology to try to manipulate someone. But given they do not have that feeling of remorse, that is not a genuine apology, and thus it is considered a lie, and thus it can be a form of manipulation, but that is not a genuine apology, right? That, like, being good at being able to communicate and sell yourself is not something that automatically disqualifies you or automatically means you're trying to manipulate someone. That just means you are good at communicating how you feel to other people. The definition that I provided from the start of this debate, and you're welcome to provide an opposing one, but the one that has stood is to say that you manipulate someone when you get them to act in a way that they otherwise would not have acted, using means of deception. When you do an apology, you are expressing a genuine feeling of human remorse, and it is therefore up to the person who is receiving that apology how they wanted to act on them. When it is genuine, there is no deception going on. The power still relies in the person receiving the apology, and they can still do whatever they want with that apology. It is therefore untenable to say that genuine apologies can be considered a form of manipulation. And with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you for all the points that you just highlighted. What I'm trying to say is just one thing that we need just to make clear. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that is starting to apologize or using apology is kind of a manipulation. I mean, what I'm saying, as we agreed in the very beginning of this, there is many different kinds of apology. There is a good kind of apology, there is a bad kind of an apology, and there is a manipulative kind of an apology. Manipulative kind of apology, I'm using this apology to manipulate somebody. I'm using the situation right now. I'm late at work, and I'm just in 2 hours late, so I'm in the face of my manager, and what am I gonna do? I'll be apologizing. That's the thing that I'm gonna do. Okay, what am I gonna do? I'll be using this apologize to manipulate him. This is a situation where I'm going to use an apology or the form of an apology to manipulate the body that I'm talking to. There are many other ways in apologize. When you start to apologize, that is genuine, that is good. I agree with that 100%. But what I'm trying to say is